Okay, Truth Seeker Learning here. Today I want to show you some Pythagorean Theorem word problems. Okay? So I wrote one out. I'll write another one. Maybe we'll do a couple of them or three. We'll see. Maybe a few. Okay, so anyway, the hardest part to doing this, I think, is labeling the diagram properly. A ladder is placed 5 feet from the foot of a wall. The top of the ladder reaches a point 12 feet above the ground. Find the length of the ladder. Okay, so I just read it out. I'm going to read it again. A ladder is placed 5 feet from the foot of the wall. Here's my wall. Here's my ladder. 5 feet apart. There's my 5. Okay? The top of the ladder reaches a point 12 feet above the ground. That doesn't say that the ladder, okay, itself is 12 feet long. It says that it reaches a point 12 feet above the ground. So therefore the wall is 12 feet. You follow me? Hope you follow me. Then you look at what they ask you. What's the length of the ladder? Find the length of the ladder. So that's our x. You understand? That's what we're looking for. Now, let me just erase this. And I'll do the Pythagorean theorem right here. So how do I know this is Pythagorean theorem? Because that's a good question too. Well, I know that this makes a right triangle. So therefore, how do I find a side of a right triangle? I use Pythagorean theorem. So I go a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I told you that the c squared is always the hypotenuse, and I said that the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, right? And it's always the longest side. 3 things. So, longest side opposite the right angle, that's 2 things. Anyway, so we have a squared, that's 12 squared, plus 5 squared equals c squared. So we're actually looking for the hypotenuse here. Okay, 12 squared, well, it's 144. You really should know that. Plus 5 squared, which is 25, equals c squared. Now, what's 144 and 25? Well, I can add it up over here for you. No problem. 144 plus 25. 5 and 4 is 9. 4 and 2 is 6 with a 1. 169. So then 169 equals c squared. Now how do I get rid of the square? Well, I square the other side. So 169 radical equals c. What is the square root of 169? Well, I happen to know it, but you can always use your calculator, and it happens to be 13. C equals 13. So this hypotenuse is 13. Now, do you see how it makes sense? It's the longest side. This is 12, this is 5, this is 13. So I know that that's most likely correct because it's the longest side. All right? Let's do another one. Let's do another one. You're going to have to bear with me as we write it out, as I write it out. But that's the whole point of this. I got to go in here. Let's see. Here's one that's interesting. Let's see if you can do this. Erica, it's a little different than the last one. Erica drives 25 miles. Okay? She drives 25 miles south. And then east. Excuse my sloppy handwriting. That's an E. Then she drives east. It is determined that she drove 60 miles from where she started. Okay? Now the question is, how far east did she drive? Okay, how far east did she drive? Okay. So let me go over this again. Erica drives 25 miles south. So let's just say I'm going to start her here. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So she drives 25 miles south. Okay? And then she goes east. East is this way. So she goes that way. And then it says, now this is where she started, right? This is her start. Right here. Then she drove east, right? It says that she drove 60 miles. It's determined that she drove 60 miles from where she started. So now, this is where she wound up east, and this is where she started. So then I'm going to draw this. Look familiar to you? Looks like a right triangle. So this is 60. And that happens to be the hypotenuse. Then it says, how far east did she drive? Right here. Okay? So the question is, how far east did she drive? So we needed one of the legs. This is a right triangle. This is a Pythagorean theorem. Let me use a different color. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is the hypotenuse. So 25 squared plus b squared, which is missing, equals 60 squared. Okay. I'll use my calculator for this. A good graphing calculator. 25 times 25 is 625. Plus b squared equals, now what is 60 squared? 3,600. So they're kind of big numbers here. Now I will combine like terms, because this is an algebra problem. Minus 625. Minus 625. And I can do it out, but I want to save time, because this is harder stuff. 2975. 2975. So then b squared equals 2975. Now I want to get rid of the square. So I just put b equals 2975 under a radical. And then I do the square root 2975. Excuse me. And, well, it's not even. But that's okay. b equals 54.435657, whatever. Now you have a choice, right? I could reduce that. I could try to reduce that radical. It would take me a few minutes, but I can do it. Or you just might want an approximation. Or your teacher might say round to the nearest tenth, or the round to the nearest hundredth, or the round to the nearest thousandth. Usually it's hundredths. But anyway, which means that would be the 3. So that would actually be, if I rounded that to the hundredths place, it would be 54.44. So this is approximately 54 whatever miles. She went approximately 54 miles. Well, east. Anyway, it makes sense because the hypotenuse is large, the largest part there. And it worked out fine. I mean, it's not even, but that's okay. That happens in Pythagorean theorem. It happens just fine. Let me do another one, and then we'll call it a day. I do 3 of them, just to give you an idea of how these word problems are done. All right, and once you do a few, you can always find some online and practice if you want. Because practice is very important in math. Let's do one from this book. I think they're using the same stuff here. A ladder 20 feet high is leaned against a wall. Alright, so the ladder, 20 feet, I shouldn't say high, I should say long, 20 feet long, is leaned against the wall. So the ladder's 20 feet. Okay, now, the foot of the ladder is 16 feet from the wall. Okay? How high is the wall? Let's see if that makes sense. A ladder 20 feet high, 20 feet long, keep saying that, 20 feet long, is leaned against a wall. The foot of the ladder is 16 feet from the wall. And this is the wall. I know that's crooked, but what can I do? It's a little crooked. How's that? That's a little better. Right triangle. How high is the wall? That's that. Okay. Now, let's do it. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So now, in this case, I have a leg, I have a hypotenuse, I need another leg. So I'm going to make the a missing this time, because I always do the b. So it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Okay. A squared plus 16 squared. I forgot what that is. $256 is $256, and 20 squared is 400. Then we subtract, because we are combining like terms, because that is what you do in algebra. It's one of the major steps. 400 minus 256, just to save time, is 144. Now I get rid of the square, and I make this a radical. Square root of 144 is 12. So therefore this is 12. Which makes sense, because it's smaller than the hypotenuse. And it should be. Okay? Now, these type of word problems can be done with ladders. They're done sometimes with lighthouses. You know, you have a lighthouse, and then you have a light that shines down, and there's a boat out from the lighthouse. How far is the boat from the lighthouse, or how... You know, what is the length of the light that shines from the lighthouse that hits the boat? Or how tall is the lighthouse? It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. What you deal with, it could be a tree. They do this with a tree. So you'd have a tree, and then it's shadow. They do that. Let me just show you that for a minute. I'm not going to do a problem, but I'll show you what they can do. But what you have to look out for is the shape of a right triangle. Because what they're doing is they're making the shape of a right triangle. So if I make a tree, right, just in a word problem, and then you have the sun, and it's shining, it's going to cast a shadow, right? Well, this is the shadow. But then you could maybe attach a string, they'll say. So they'll look for one of those, but that's a right triangle. Then they'll have a lighthouse, right? They'll have a lighthouse. That's a bad lighthouse thingy, whatever the hell it is. And then it goes down, and then you have your little boat guy. And he's out there, and there's your sea, and the light is shining. So they'll ask you how far the boat is or whatever. But anyway, the point is that the scenarios change, but it's all the same. And the commonality that you need to look out for, and I'm giving you a hint, is if the shape makes a right triangle. So it's up to you to draw it out and make sure that you. Well, I would draw it out, and then make sure if you can, determine if it's a right triangle. Okay? I hope this video was helpful. Truth Seeker Learning, I'm out.